Bills. There were a lot of teams there, and I think he's firmly in the top 10 right now. Heck, the Giants could take him at 5. He could go that high. I think that's a lot of teams probably have him as their number one. I spoke to a scout on a team today. He said Tyson's been the number one receiver from the beginning of the process. So a lot of teams love Tyson despite the injury history. I don't think the Jets are going to be able to trade up for him. It would take a lot. I don't think the Jets love Carnell Tate as much as people think. And someone told me today they thought Tate could be available into the teens. So maybe if the Jets sit at 16, maybe they get Tate falling into their lap. I happen to think he'll probably go before that. I think you could see the Jets, if they're sitting there at 16 and Tate, Lemon, and Tyson are all gone, I could see the Jets moving back. I've heard that as a possibility as well. You move back, maybe pick up an extra pick or two, and you still get a receiver like a Denzel Boston or an Omar Cooper Jr. So up, down, I think Muji's open to all possibilities right now.
Let's face it. You mentioned the Giants. I think the Giants with that trade, that certainly opens up a lot of different possibilities where we hit this a couple of years ago where obviously the Jets took Sauce and they took Garrett, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal. It's very similar here. Now, listen, there's a lot of rumblings and Malik Neighbors. Okay, well, you got Malik Neighbors. Maybe get him another receiver. Maybe the Giants think about maybe getting Jackson Dart, a tight end, which would be Sadiq. That's the only one you would take that early. Jake, do you think that what do you think the chance is that the Jets and the Giants are actually scrapping after the same guy at number 10 and 16, like in that window, not 2 and 5?
Well, I'll tell you what, because of the trade the Giants made, now having 5 and 10, I think it makes it a lot harder for the Jets to get one of the quote-unquote big 3 receivers that we've discussed. I don't know the Jets board if they rank it the same way the consensus has it, where it's basically in order of like Tate or Tyson, and then you have Mekhi Lemon somewhere in that conversation. But if the Giants want a receiver, like if you're the Jets, you probably got to get in front of them. I mean, I know Kansas City at 9. There was a report today that they're looking to potentially move out of 9 and get more picks. I mean, could the Jets have to now potentially leapfrog the Giants to go from 16 to 9 if Big Blue, let's say, takes one of the Ohio State players at 5 or Jeremiah Love, and then their plan is to take their receiver with that number 10 pick they got in the Dexter Lawrence deal?
Yeah, I mean, I'll reiterate what I mean, yeah, it's possible. I think that would be a reach for the Jets. I just would not give up the 44th pick in the draft and something else to move up to 9 to get a receiver who's got some injury questions. The Jets just have so many needs. I think those 2 second-round picks are very important to fill those needs. I would not do it personally. Now, look, the Jets may have Jordan Tyson as like one of the top 3 or 4 guys on their draft board. I don't know. If they love him that much, maybe they feel compelled to make a move like that.
Just to finish the thought on what the Giants could do, because it does wrap it on what the Jets might try to do. I don't know what percentage I would give this. It's not over 50%. It's below that, but I don't think it's completely implausible that the Giants, if the Cardinals don't take Love, right, Giants could take Love and they could go offensive linemen. I mean, Harbaugh has talked about O-line, and I think the Giants are a little bit in play for Love. So if that happens, that wouldn't complicate the Jets' ability to get one of the top 3 receivers.
Yeah.
And I'll throw this out, and this is not really pertaining to this year's draft, but it's kind of a tasty little morsel.
Oh,
I was talking to a Cincinnati source today. We're talking about the Dexter Lawrence trade, and there's a feeling in the Cincinnati organization that was made in part to really appease Joe Burrow, because we know he was making a lot of cryptic comments toward the end of the year, and I know Jet fans, this was a topic of conversation. Maybe the Bengals would trade Joe Burrow. So I think that trade was made to try to appease their quarterback, who was probably thinking, am I ever going to get a defense to win with? So just a little morsel for Jet fans there.
Tasty.
The fact that the Bengals are thinking that way, or at least some people there are thinking that way, lets you know that maybe they're just a little bit concerned a year from now, if things go sideways again for them, maybe Joe Burrow looking to get out.
I love it. So let's hope that Dexter Lawrence shows up 403 pounds. Nothing serious, but maybe tweaks a hammy the first day or so, and then, kind of labors through camp and then starts the season out of shape and has a half a sack by November. The Bengals defense thinks again, and Burrow says, get me out of here. Jets trade for him, and away we go. That's got to be the hope, right?
Put him on the Mekhi Becton diet and eat 400 pounds, and there we go. The Jets trading 3 number ones for Joe Burrow.
Let's go.
I'll never forget one of the interactions that Rich and Mike Tannenbaum had on the Sunday show I would do with Mike on ESPN in New York, where Mike Tannenbaum was dead set trying to convince Rich live on the air that if he had the opportunity to get Joe Burrow in a room, Joe Burrow would waive his full no trade and want to play for Aaron Glenn and the Jets. And I'm sitting there just laughing as Mike is like getting into this spirited debate with Rich. I don't know how you didn't hang up the phone there, Rich, because there's no chance Joe Burrow is signing up to play on the MetLife turf for Woody Johnson and Aaron Glenn after the Jets are going through a 3-win season this past year.
Yeah, well, Mike convinced Brett Favre once upon a time. He thinks he can convince anyone now. So
I was going to say, is that the same Mike Tannenbaum who actually built some good teams?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't sound like the same Mike Tannenbaum that he was throwing that. And I love Mike, but that's wacky.
He's the last GM with a winning record of the Jets. As much crap as I give Mike sometimes for
he was good.
His crazy his takes. I mean, some of the best moves the Jets made, like trading up for Darrelle Revis, for example, Mangle, DeBrickashaw. Those were his draft picks.
Yeah.
Yep. Last playoff appearance, he was the GM.
Comments, questions, super chats. We will get to those towards the end. You're watching the Jets Collective. Hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We're presented by Prize Picks. Use that code HMA you see on the screen. If you put $5 in, you'll get $50 instantly in lineups. We'll have a prize pick selection coming up. Before we get to the mini mock, Rich, just another follow-up just on the Jets at 16. You mentioned trading back. It feels like there could be a tackle run right near where the Jets are set the pick. Right. Everyone thinks the Lions at 17, one pick behind the Jets, need an offensive tackle. If one of the tackles makes it to 16, I think the Jets would be in a spot where they can actually move out of that pick, maybe go down somewhere in the 20s, and then take a Denzel Boston or Casey Concepcion, maybe Omar Cooper. Like if there's a perceived drop-off in the receivers and the Jets are there at 16, they don't love the value of one of those receivers. I'd be surprised if Muji wasn't able to get some sort of trade offer to move down from 16. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's a good point because I'm looking at the list. You know, I got starting at 10 with the Giants. I think you got 10 with the Giants. You got 11 Miami, I think, is looking offensive tackle. You could see Baltimore at 14 looking for an offensive lineman. And so you got Detroit at 17. A lot of teams, there's going to be a run on tackles in the teens. The one position that the Jets don't need to draft. So you make a great point. Maybe a team really craves one of those tackles. The Jets, drop down a few spots, grab a Denzel Boston, who I know they like. Maybe not at 16, but maybe at 20 or 22 or somewhere in that range. And you pick up an extra pick.
And the tackle would probably be somebody more like Caden Proctor, somebody like that from Bama. Because you're past Fano at that point. You're past the tackle from Miami. So I would think that those guys would go 1-2 in either order. And then, I guess if you get to mid-teens, Proctor's a name from Alabama as a tackle you want to keep an eye on. Makes sense. Yeah,
I got Baltimore and looking at Proctor, and I got Baltimore also looking at Ioane Ibenga, the Penn State guard. Yep. I think is a possibility there, and we'll get into that more in our mock draft coming up shortly.
Rich, would there be a shocking position they could draft at 16 that you don't see coming right now?
Like last week, I thought corner would be a possibility there, but now you're hearing a lot of stuff about the Tennessee kid who they did have in for a visit that like on a medical recheck, Jermod McCoy now could be falling out of the first round because there's talk that he may need another surgery to do some cleanup. So, and I think Mansour Delane is going to go really high. I think he's going to be top 10. Yep. So then there's a big gap in cornerback. So I don't think it'll be a cornerback. I think tight end, which BT alluded to earlier. I think that would be like the wild card pick there.
Kenyon Sadiq, the name that we talked about.
Man.
Rich, is your intel still that you don't believe he'll actually make it to 16?
He's right in that range. I think, right around there. That would be a fascinating, like to me, if all the good just get a pass catcher, whether he's a tight end or a wide receiver. If the wide receivers are gone, instead of reaching for a second tier wide receiver or a third tier wide receiver, take Sadiq.